Okay, thank you for coming to the Saratoga Springs Planning Commission meeting for Thursday, July 31st. We will go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and Commissioner Mangum is leading us in that tonight.
Please follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and we are going to excuse Commissioner Wilden tonight, and Commissioner Karn has now joined us, so perfect timing on that. And we'll go ahead and start with public input. Time for public input is limited to no more than 15 minutes total. This time has been set aside for the public to express ideas, concerns, and comments for subject matter not listed as public hearing on the agenda. We'll now open public input. Seeing none, we'll close public input. We'll move to our first public hearing. The commission will accept public comment and may make a recommendation to the City Council for the following items. Item 1, amendments to Title 19 Land Development Code of the City of Saratoga Springs, Architectural Standards Code Amendment for Sections 19.02, Definitions, and 19.16, Site and Architectural Design Standards, citywide initiated. Senior Planner Roy will be presenting that, possibly. Yeah?
Thank you, commissioners. So this what we have on the agenda tonight is actually it's a large item. It's something that we've been working on for a while now. We put together multiple code amendments. We actually had multiple code amendments that were going to be going on, architectural design standards, and this applies citywide. And so we just decided to lump everything together into one big amendment, and so that's what we're seeing tonight. And then a vast majority of this, we actually consulted an architect firm, VCBO. We have Rachel Stein here tonight, who's going to kind of go through some of the more architectural stuff. And so this, it encompasses a lot of different things. There's a definition, and then it talks about office warehouse buildings, and then a bunch of other stuff. So I'm going to kind of give you a breakdown here. We'll go on this screen here, and you can kind of a bullet point list. This is kind of everything in a nutshell. So section 1902, we're adding a definition for primary materials. Our code says you can have like 75% of a building as one single primary material, but people would be like, well, what is a primary material? So we're adding a definition for that. And then in 1916, we've added a section for 3D renderings. We're going to make that a requirement for all buildings going forward. Sometimes it's hard to visualize what a building looks like when it's a 2D image. So now we're requiring 3D renderings for all commercial buildings moving forward. Improved pedestrian connectivity between buildings and public right-of-way. Updates to parking area, outdoor display, and screening standards are also in here. And then we have some updates to the articulation requirements. So this is basically kind of like what they have to do to kind of make their building more interesting, right? So it's not just a big flat thing. And so we've decided to break it up into two different categories. We have buildings under 20,000 square feet and buildings over 20,000 square feet. So what we found is that by applying the same standards that we've been applying for every building, once you get really big, that little 5-foot pop out doesn't make a big difference anymore when you get like a big, huge building. And so we thought we need to scale this bigger for the bigger buildings. And so that's what that's done. We've updated 3 family and multifamily material and color requirements so that there'll be more colors and more materials as you're if it faces a street, like a main street, it should have more variety instead of just facing like the plain back of a stucco multifamily building, right, facing the street. So the idea was to kind of get more diversity that way. Let's see what else. We've done updates to clarify the material and color requirements for commercial buildings, added an exception for rain gutters. We found out, so our code says that you have to have all roof drainage be internal to a building, but what we found is when you start doing sloped roofs, you almost always have to have a rain gutter and a downspout. So we've added an exception for that. And then finally, we have a new section here which talks about new standards for office, warehouse, heavy commercial, light industrial, and industrial buildings. So these are the big buildings. You know, think of the ones with the big loading bays on the back. That's those kind of buildings. And so we wanted to make those buildings look nicer and be visually interesting. So the city council feels like Saratoga has done a good job of, you know, being different from other communities and trying to hold like a higher standard for architectural and signage and that kind of thing. And so we wanted to kind of shift that same focus to the office warehouse buildings. And so we have Rachel here tonight. I'm going to turn it over to her, and she can explain that better. And so I don't know if we want to do that or hold the public hearing first. I don't know how you want to do that, Chair.
Let's go ahead and open for public comment and then go from there, I think.
Okay.
So we'll go ahead and open for public comment. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. And we'll go ahead and hear from our design person.
Hi, my name is I'm Rachel Stein, and I'm representing VCBO Architecture. We put together a quick presentation for you guys today to kind of highlight the main changes in office, warehouse, and industrial. How's it? Just a second. Great. So we wanted to provide a quick recap. We did meet with the City Council at the end of May. We gave them a visual preference survey where we had a bunch of different types of industrial buildings shown, and they put blue stickers on the developments that they liked the architecture of, and then the yellow stickers were on ones that they disliked. So those are a few examples from what they did and did not like. And our takeaways from this, one of the big ones was that building pop-outs, so that's aligning the horizontal and vertical articulation of a building, which is popping out and up from the primary facade, was alike, and so we've implemented that into our standards, and I'll highlight that later on. We also identified a grand main entrance with storefront windows. Another thing that was of note was the neutral color palette was desired, but they want this to be contrasting in color so that the colors stand out from one another. And then also the inclusion of human scale elements on the outside of the building. Some dislikes were color and material changes that aren't physically articulated with the building. So on the left there, you can see how it's a flat facade, but they're changing the material and color. It doesn't quite have that standout effect as some of the other buildings. And then colors that were too similar and don't stand out was another thing to avoid, as well as cube-shaped structures and dominating bright colors. All right, so starting off with some site and loading area standards that we've developed, we added in some language, and this applies to most developments in the community. So sidewalks that come from the public right-of-way and go all the way to the building entrances, as well as a connection to adjacent properties if that is applicable for that site. And then specifically for loading areas in these types of development, we've noted that there needs to be a setback of 10 feet if it's running a public right-of-way, and that this must be landscaped with street trees distributed at 30 feet, and then also include a 6-foot-tall solid wall for screening. Is there any questions? Great. So then moving into the building articulation, this is more of the architectural features of the building. So we have the primary facade, which must be horizontally articulated every 50 feet. So again, this is coming out from the primary structure. On the sides, this is reduced to 75 feet, and then or increased to 75 feet. And then on the rear and loading facades, it increases to 200 feet to allow for that distribution activity while still providing some visual interest. Some examples of forms of appropriate horizontal articulation include facade step in and outs. So for facades that span more than 200 feet, that's going to be 3 feet. And for facades under 200 feet, it needs to pop out at least 2 feet. Corners must be highlighted through a minimum 2-foot projection outward and upward, and we'll go over the vertical articulation on the next slide. And these must be at least 30 feet in length on the corners. There also must be a distinct change in texture and color on the building entryways and on the corners, and we'll show some examples of that later as well.
That's your question.
Yeah.
Those articulations, are they just mostly false facade, or is the building actually?
It can be, it's up to the developer, but yes, it could be a false facade.
We've got a question from Commissioner Mangum as well.
Sure.
Thank you so much. I understand that Saratoga Springs has a high standard, and I like that. I like the fact that we want things to look beautiful. In my career, I do a lot of lending, and so the thing that pops out to me the most when I look over this is I think to myself, are we increasing the cost of construction by things like this articulation? Are we making it harder for people to start businesses because they have to pay for the additional the wood and the construction? Have we considered that aspect? The fact that a lot of these things make the building more expensive?
That is something to consider, that some of these things will make it more expensive, but that's also subjective, and Rachel can probably answer that better than I can, just in terms of cost, because they deal with that more. But it does depend on the materials and how they're applied and things like that. So there are ways it could be more expensive, but there's also ways that that those costs could be lessened depending on what materials and applications.
Yeah, I second what Sarah said, that it is pushing the standard a little bit to increase the architecture, but especially material costs, that is where we're looking at a higher cost. And the materials, we've given a lot of options as well as flexibility from the Land Use Authority for people to present other materials and make sure that it passes the standards.
Okay. I'm going to just say, I appreciate that question. Let's maybe hold some of these questions that are more, let's ask questions directly to what's being presented and hold the more discussion-like questions till the end so that we can have a conversation about that. Commissioner Miles, though, was yours? Okay. Great.
So moving on to building height and rooftop features. The roofs shall be flat. This is a general applicable thing for these types of developments, and they shall have parapets, which is a slight wall and raised around the main roof, and these should be sized to visually obscure any rooftop equipment that may be on top of the building from the public right-of-way. And then we are also standardizing a 2-foot vertical articulation along with the horizontal articulation. So everywhere the building is required to be horizontally articulated, it must also articulate 2 feet, project 2 feet upwards from the building, and that kind of creates that effect where it looks like a portion of the building is popping out. Lower roof elements are also encouraged, and they are required over main entries and any occupied rooftop spaces. So anywhere where there's pedestrians likely to be concentrated or just a more trafficked area, it will have some of those shade amenities. Now looking at the building entryways, we want the building entryways to be clearly identifiable, distinct materials, and design features. So if there's multiple entries for a building, these should each be distinguishable from the site entrance or from where people are accessing the site. We are also standardizing an amenity zone. So in front of each of the building entryways, there must be a paved 15-foot area, and it must be at least 30 feet wide. And this will include site amenities such as seating, decorative lighting, landscaping, depending on developer decides. We are also standardizing several things for each entry, so that includes the parapet or wall elements, awnings, canopies, or other rooftop elements that extend at least 3 feet outward, so that's providing that shade for the entryways, and then a distinct material and decorative lighting at each of the entryways. For windows, so we're looking at large glass windows on the level or ground level and smaller windows generally for the upper floors. Opaque, heavily tinted, and reflective materials are prohibited on the ground floor, and that's to avoid glare impacts onto the right-of-way. Facades fronting a public street will require a 25% glass on the first floor, which is represented in this diagram, and then 10% on upper floors. Corner lots or a secondary street-facing facade would require 15% on the lower floor and then 10% on the upper floors. All facades, including the rear-facing facade, will include a minimum of 5%. And now getting into building materials. So the primary facade must be covered in at least 20% of a high-quality material. So some examples of this would include brick masonry, natural stone, or architectural metal panel. Other facades will have to implement 10% of one of the following, so that includes masonry, high-quality concrete, tilt-up concrete panels that are finished and treated, or other architectural metal panel. No more than any of the facades shall consist of any one material or color, and no more than 20% of any facade shall be clad in corrugated metal. Articulated corners and entry features will include that distinct color or material that's chosen and will be highlighted, such as the diagram shows. Great. And so kind of wrapping us up here is the primary and accent color application. So as stated in the community or in the city council during our visualization preference survey, they preferred a neutral palette overall, but with that contrast in color. So we have the tan here compared to white, as opposed to like different shades of tan or different shades of gray. We have a little bit more contrast there. And then accent colors may not be applied to more than 8% of the building facade, and they must also be complementary to the materials and colors used on the rest of the building. Artwork, signage, and awnings are available to be exempt from these limitations as permitted by the Land Use Authority. Awesome. So now if there's any questions or discussion, I'll open to that.
All right, Commissioner Karn.
I have a few. You said there has to be contrast in the colors. Is that in the eye of the beholder, or is there a definition clear?
So we looked at the definition. I think it's a tone difference. We could get a little bit more specific and see if there's some way to measure it, if that would be helpful. But for the most part, I think it will be in the eye of the Land Use Authority when the developer is presenting those color palettes and material palettes for them to determine if it's contrasting.
Okay, and then I saw that there was a desire to have a grand entrance feel. So
Yes.
I saw a requirement for amenities at the entrance, distinct lighting,
Yes.
a 3-foot roof element. Those are the things, would those apply to the pictures you showed? Or were the pictures you showed of likes and dislikes more grand than that?
So yes, some of the images that were shown were of a higher caliber, I will say. Those are a little bit more expensively for the developer. What we're showing in the renderings is the bare minimum. So this amenity zone that's shown here is that 15-foot in length minimum, but the developer could go bigger. And in addition to what you stated, I would also say that the expansive windows or storefront windows requiring is another kind of entrance element.
Okay, and then why less windows on the second floor?
Just because they're not as useful there. We want to show that there's more visualization and transparency and fluidity through that first floor. It's not as necessary for the second floor, and often some types of these buildings don't even have an upper floor.
Okay, and then I saw you said 5% windows on the rear.
Yes.
For an industrial building, does do windows present a safety or security risk?
No.
People can see in and...
Yeah, so in our example here, and that's the back facade entirely, we do have them located higher up so that they're not within those distribution direct loading zones, so that could be achieved in this way. And
Okay, this is for a loading type building, but this applies to any building more than 20,000 square foot, is that right?
These standards are specifically for the industrial and business.
Okay, so there's gonna be loading doors most likely.
Mostly, yes.
Okay, and then why invest on the rear of the building? Would we rather have them spend their money on a grander entrance if they're gonna spend money versus the rear of the building?
Right, that's a good point, and we could consider it in a case-by-case basis. I think what we are considering is the four sides architecture in the case that this building could be fronting a public right-of-way or some other development where it might be visible. But we could adjust that standard to consider the lot placement and what it's abutting.
Okay, maybe my question for the city planning, how often do we have a rear of an industrial building that is facing a city right away? Is that a common thing?
We have in the city now, you can see the rear as you're driving by.
Okay,
Yeah,
so we care.
we do care, yeah.
Okay, thank you. That was all my questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Karn. Commissioner Mangum.
Oh, thank you so much. So again, this kind of goes back to my profession and who knows if it'll ever happen. I would love to own a big fancy, big massive warehouse where just baseball's trained inside. So when I look at this type of code, I think to myself, a grand entrance makes sense to me. I want people to know where to go when they're coming to the building. But then I start to think, with all these changes, what was the standard and where are we at now? And are we increasing the cost for somebody to build? The articulation, making it pop in and out like that, it seems like a waste of money unless there is a way to do it without increasing costs. And so that's the question in my mind, is it increasing costs? In 10% windows on the upper, 15 on the lower, I'm thinking to myself, what was it previously? Are we increasing expense for builders there? And the reason why I constantly hear from builders over and over, the cost keeps going up, the cost keeps going up. And so I'm thinking, am I looking out? Am I trying to help make it more realistic for people to own a business and build a building? And so I'm wondering, what are the standards previously, and what are we going to, like with the 10% windows on the upper, 15%? Did we even have a standard previously for 20% high quality material and amenities at the entrance? I mean, do we have any measurement at all that tells us these changes are going to increase costs by this much, or?
See them in the packet, the old standards. They're there of what it was.
It's likely that this will increase costs. The goal was to improve the aesthetics on these large buildings due to the mass and scale. In the case of something like baseball indoors, they could do faux windows on that upper level rather than actual glazing. So there are options that they can consider. It's really to break up the mass and scale of such a large building. So we didn't necessarily compare it cost by cost. When you do add windows, it does increase cost. The previous code required articulation, so on the back elevation required articulation. 2 colors of materials was already there. It required articulation, but it was working on the size of buildings we have in the city, and it wasn't working on larger buildings. So it wasn't turning out to be enough. We had a warehouse come in, and their articulation was an 8-inch brick on the top of the roof parapet. And so it's just on the scale, on a building of that scale, it's so minimal to just add 8 inches. So it was to achieve the same level of standard that we have on other buildings that are smaller in regard to articulation, but to do that on a bigger scale. And yeah, Austin, can you
Just to add a
answer?
couple more things, yeah. So I mean, the windows, that's definitely a new thing. So like windows in the loading area, we did not have that standard before. The articulation, so like popping the building in and out, we did have a requirement like that before, but it wasn't very clear. And so one of the recent office warehouse buildings, it was a flex building actually, that came in, the developer, obviously, and to your point, we don't want to put an impediment to business and people starting a company or something, but I mean, they kind of pushed back and they did the bare minimum, which, if you're trying to get under a certain dollar figure, that makes sense. But it wasn't quite achieving the result that we had in mind. So we don't have a lot of our office warehouse buildings, to be quite frank. Like Saratoga just doesn't have a lot. So we wrote something in the code, and I think when we saw what it looked like, it didn't achieve the result that was originally intended. And so this is to try and get that that what was originally intended with the code. So I don't think that was the the objective was just to kind of get this certain look that the city council originally had in mind when the code was originally created.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Mangum. Commissioner Mann, hold on one second.
Thank you. So when I'm looking at page 10, which is referencing the non-residential buildings, section 5, specifically lines I and II, where we're discussing the downspouts and rain gutters. Kind of to piggyback off what Commissioner Mangum was discussing, there are very reasonable ways to create curb appeal, and one of the things that was mentioned early on here was that we're looking to create an interesting look. We're trying to create a diverse appearance of these buildings. And, I can tell professionally, one of those ways to do that is through contrasting downspouts and rain gutters. When you guys are looking at these new modern buildings that are, currently being built, we're seeing white brick buildings with black rain gutters, black buildings with copper rain gutters, hunter green buildings with white rain gutters, and that creates a lot of curb appeal. It creates a modern look. And so it almost, to me, it's like, well, why are we requiring these other things that are far more expensive for these builders to create, where we can achieve the same goal with something that may not cost anything at all? And in fact, we're prohibiting it with this addition to the code. We're actually, we're dooming our city to have to live in the past with our new buildings, where these builders are wanting to have their businesses look modern and new, and we're actually preventing them from doing that and prohibiting ourselves from being able to achieve that in a reasonable fiscal way. So I would just really, really encourage City Council to take a look at this, consider removing this verbiage, because I really think that it will ultimately hurt us. Just a quick Google search, you could look at a lot of the new current buildings and how they really contrast the colors of the building with the rain gutters, and that's prohibited with this new addition.
We did prohibit it previously. We're actually changing it so you can have them on the exterior now.
Well, it says on section I, all exterior, and this is in red, so I'm assuming that's new code. All exterior drainage elements shall be designed using materials and colors that closely match the building's primary or accent colors, and downspouts shall be integrated into the architectural design in a manner that reduces visibility. Where I'm actually saying, if you have a white brick building that has black downspouts, that's not reducing visibility. It's actually creating a curb appeal that makes it pop.
Yeah,
Creating
it is new language, but it's repeat for this particular section. So we do that in the code already with buildings. But yeah, if you want that feedback passed on to the council, they'll see that in the minutes. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Mann and Commissioner Miles.
Thank you. This has been very, very helpful. I think these questions have spurred on a lot more thinking for me. Just to clarify, though, and I think you have already, this wouldn't apply to any office warehouse type building, right? We're not talking the fast food restaurant or any of those chain or franchise type things that are known for a certain color and a certain design or whatnot. That's the situation.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. That's helpful. Okay. I think these other questions have helped answer my other ones. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Miles. Commissioner Hill.
Thank you, Austin and the planning department. And kudos that we are smart enough to get an architect firm that does this for a living, because it's so complex, and your breadth of understanding and the projects you're working on can bring so much to the table. So thank you, city and city council, for allowing that to happen. That would have put a tremendous burden on the planning department to do that. I go back to the reason that we're doing this, and this is to align us with the desire for a vision of our city, and we talked a lot about that. And as I read through this, I could really feel that we're more defining the standards and requirements so that we can really tell our builders what to do. And I think that's really important, because if the builders can't know exactly where we want them to go, that wastes money, time, and effort, and staff's time. So thank you for updating this particular area. You know, we've answered so many of my questions, the 3D rendering, you know, the cost of that. It's so minimal compared to what they're doing, but it gives us a much more visual idea of what's going on. I liked the connectivity for the pedestrians, that were much more friendly, and we talked a lot about that in this city. We've got to remember, we're a city that's 25 years old, and we're going through tremendous building right now. And to come up with uniquenesses that set us apart from others, I think it's a unique opportunity that we have. I've seen some of the buildings around the area that are involved in the same types of things, and it just, the curb appeal is much greater. You know, everybody had lots of good questions, and I think everything that I had was answered. But again, thank you to working as a team to bring, I think, a quality product to the table.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Hill. Commissioner Carn.
Yeah, just one more. I'm looking at the zoning and planning map, and correct me, but is this all of the IC? Industrial, commercial, zone?
It's office, warehouse, heavy commercial, light industrial, and industrial.
Okay, those are the line items, but they are.
OW, HC, LI, and I.
Okay, then I'm using this wrong. Okay, I'll go do my research then, because I'm using the map and all I see is like IC, RR, you know, R36, R110. Is that the right map?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those would be the residential areas, like the,
Right.
yeah.
But
But it should be,
These are all in the IC areas, right? The dark blue?
yeah, well,
OW is a gray color.
OW, I'm trying to remember what color that one is.
OW's light gray, industrial's a dark gray.
Oh, there we go.
And then we have some new, you won't see any light industrial yet. It's a new zone, so we don't have any of that yet. And then heavy commercial, I can't remember what color that is, but we only have
Yeah,
a
it's like
couple
a light
properties
blue.
with that zone.
Can you show just where those
Yeah.
are? Do you mind? You're going to be faster than me.
Sarah lives with those maps.
So you'll see the ones we're talking about are industrial, so it's dark gray, office, warehouse, and heavy commercial, it's dark red. And then we don't have any light industrial zoning yet. We have it on the land use map, but not on
Not zone.
on the zoning map at this time. It replaced office warehouse, so we still have office warehouse because we have properties with that. The areas you're talking about are going to be over here.
Okay.
This was approved up here. We have some applications and some approvals in here, and we have more coming. So that's the office warehouse zoning, north part of the city. And then we have some heavy commercial over here, and some office warehouse. This is existing. There's warehouse buildings on these locations here, and then this will be future. So then the code you're talking about now would apply to this heavy commercial, which will be next to regional commercial and mixed residential.
Okay.
And then we
just
have-
Pioneer there, and then just
Yeah.
east of Redwood, north of the.
And we just have a little bit over by Wildflower of industrial zoning. So we don't actually have a lot, but in the locations that they're in, they're also somewhat next to other zones like residential, so.
Okay. And in terms of land use, I mean, let's assume Jack's comment that this makes it more expensive. Do we want that?
Well, these amendments were requested by our city council, so I do think that as generally, as we apply architecture throughout the city, that we do have standards that are maybe right in the middle, you know, they're not the cheapest and they're not the most expensive. So I think as a city, we have developed for years with standards that are kind of in the middle in terms of expense, and I think that this would do that as well. There's definitely higher standards we could apply to warehouses and lower standards, and I think this is more of a middle ground.
And attracting this kind of development, is that very attractive to, if we make it easier to develop or harder to develop, is that more attractive? Like, does that make the city more desirable?
We don't have a lot of land left for it. We do have in the Wildflower development, Village 5 is going to be office warehouse. They just got through city council and their standards are very similar to what you're seeing here, and they agreed to those standards. I think that when you do have warehouse, we don't have a city that's structured in a way that has room or space or desire for a lot of warehousing. But I think the warehousing that we do get, we want it to have it. As at least the city council has directed us to propose these standards. And so the standards that are drafted represent what they've instructed staff to do.
Right. No, I get that. Like, I'm just trying to weigh, if it makes it more expensive, it makes it nicer for the community, but it may make those less likely to develop. And is that
Well,
good or bad?
warehousing doesn't have a lot of head of household jobs. It doesn't, warehouse space versus office space has a lower job ratio. I think as a city, we are trying to attract more head of household jobs
Yeah.
to the city. The warehousing is still going to be beneficial. It's still going to have, create more job base in the city. But we do hope as a city to continue to attract more head of household type jobs within the city limits.
To be less of a commute.
Reduce the commute.
Yeah, so not as good as commercial, office commercial for head of household jobs, but still good.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Karn. This doesn't make any adjustment to parking, right?
No.
Okay, that was it for me then.
Other than I did see on some of it that a certain amount of parking needs to be on the side and in the back. Is that correct? So that we have a visual, not a big parking lot that you're looking from the street. So more on the side.
It's
and
already in
back.
there. That's not new language,
Right.
but this section does require that.
Okay. All right, so with that said, I will go ahead and entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion based upon the evidence and the explanation received today. I move that we forward a positive recommendation to the City Council for the proposed amendment to Title 19 with the findings and conditions in the staff report.
Can we add to that we just include the comments from Commissioner Mann as well for consideration? Thank you. I thought they were great comments.
I agree.
So we can add that to,
Yeah,
You need to make a formal motion. You need to, can you address how they do that? Sorry, you need to make it formal.
yeah, so Commissioner Hill, you have to say with the amendments.
okay. So as I read with the findings and conditions in the staff report and the testimony that was given by Commissioner Magnus and Commissioner Mann on the cost, we just want to send that off to the City Council also. Is that what?
This would be on the proposed revisions to Section 5A,
Okay, to
I
5A.
and II.
Okay,
Commissioner Mann recommended that exterior downspouts be allowed to be different materials and more visible.
okay.
Just to remove I and II, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, that's specifically 19, 16, 07, 5, I, and II.
5A, I, and
True, I missed the A, yep, you got me.
Okay, do we
all-
want to redo that one?
Okay.
Austin, you're going to help me, but I'll go through
Yeah,
it.
good luck with this.
Based upon the evidence and the explanations received today, I move that to forward a positive recommendation to the City Council for the proposed amendment to Title 19 with the findings and conditions in the staff report. Additionally, we would like to make mention of section,
We would like to remove.
1916-07 5A I and II.
Remove.
thank you, and reference that to testimony that was given by commissioners tonight.
No, man. Right?
By Commissioner Mann.
By Commissioner Mann.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second from Commissioner Carn. Do we have any questions on the motion? I have a question. So is the way that that was worded, we're recommending that we are removing that section?
Not what was said.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah,
You could make a motion to amend the motion.
all right.
Okay. I can do that. I make a motion to amend Commissioner Hill's motion to remove I and II from the stated section.
Okay, and then do we need to second that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
I'll second that.
okay, so we have a second from Commissioner Mann. Any questions on the motion? Okay, we'll now vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
All right, and Commissioner Mangum, if you'd like to explain your vote, you're welcome to
Sure.
do so at this time.
I've never driven through West Valley and thought to myself, boy, that building's really plain. I think to myself, I like the idea that if I ever did want to get into business, that I could build a building as cost effectively as possible. I understand this, the city wants standards, but I think in the end, I'd like more information on any kind of an idea or an example of what these amendments will do to the overall cost of the building. That's my most curious question is, how do these amendments affect what it would cost a builder to build the building? And if I knew it was maybe 1% or 2%, I might let it through, but I don't know if this is a real expensive thing to increase costs, and so that's what's going through my head.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Mangum. All right, that closes that item, and we will now move to business items. And the commission will discuss without public comment and may either make a recommendation to the city council or approve the following items as needed. 1, approval of minutes of July 10th, 2025. I will now entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from July 10th, 2025.
Thank you. We have a motion from Commissioner Carn. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a second from Commissioner Miles. Any questions on the motion? All right, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. And we'll now move to reports. First is commissioner comments. Do we have any commissioner comments tonight? All right, seeing none, can we get the director's report?
Sure. At the July 15th City Council meeting, the City Council reviewed the Wildflower Village 5 architectural standards, which was for warehousing. I know we mentioned that earlier. And then they approved those. They are similar to what you're seeing tonight. And then there was also a work session held on the In-N-Out architectural and potential variation requests, and they received feedback on that. And I don't think In-N-Out's going to request any variations. However, the council did give us direction to look at our nighttime lighting standards in commercial areas, so we'll be working on a code amendment for that. And then your next meeting will be August 14th, so, yeah,
Just a heads up, I will not be here for that one.
okay.
Very well.
And I will not be here on August 14th.
Did
But I
we,
can join virtually if needed.
did the council vote on the language for the drive-throughs, for the change of?
The outdoor seating, the drive-through?
No,
Yeah.
for the drive-throughs that are going to be going in against residential that's already built?
Oh, not yet, no.
Okay. Okay. All right, do we have a need to move into a closed session tonight?
No.
Perfect.
Can I close the loop? Do you need me to join virtually on August 14? And can you make a call-in available if you need it?
We won't know yet until I hear from others. It sounds like 2 are missing so far.
Yeah, I'm going to be in Louisiana. Thank you.
All right, we'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting.
Thank you, thank you.
That was good.